Hey everybody, Dave Marsh here from Crossroads Church, and I'm back with Brian Boal today, and we've been talking about kind of leading through this time of crisis as a small business owner, and we kind of did part one and covered a lot of kind of ideas and just forward thinking about, how do you lead during a time of crisis? Number one, it's hard.
It is.
It is just hard. Number two, you're going to make mistakes.
Yep.
That's just part of leadership, and that's okay.
Right.
Most of them are not fatal.
Absolutely.
You can recover and you can regroup and figure this out. We talked about a couple of things about really communicating with your team, your business, your employees. And communication is key right now.
Yes.
Share as much as you can share. Be open, be honest, be accessible to people.
Yes.
Be careful about texting and emailing.
Yes.
This is a time to resort to good old-fashioned phone calls.
Absolutely.
Or Zoom meetings.
Yep.
Or coffee meetings or whatever you can do right now.
Yep.
But just communication is key. But there are some things that we didn't get to cover that we thought we'd kind of come back for part two and talk about.
Sure.
And one of them is there's been some changes to tax law
Yes.
that could be helpful and beneficial for our small business owners who are listening today.
Right.
Why don't you talk about those a little?
Right, sure. Well, as everybody knows, this hit right in the middle of when everybody was filing their tax returns when they'd normally file, mid-March. People were getting ready for the April 15th deadline. So Treasury did come out and extend the April 15th deadline out to July 15th. We thought we were going to have a vacation period at that point, but
You were planning a trip.
but then came PPP.
Yeah.
But basically we have till July 15th now. Anything that was due on April 15th is now due July 15th. That even includes quarterly tax payments. So
Okay, I was gonna
no
ask you
tax
about
payments were due for the first quarter or the second quarter, which are typically June 15th. Those are now July 15th as well. However, word of caution on that. Be careful with that, because that can be a lot of money all due at one time, and that's where I'm concerned that when it comes July, everybody thinks, well, that's great, I can hold off till July 15th. Well, that is good, but you want to make sure you're reserving that in your savings account, because that's going to be possibly 3 big checks to write on July 15th, your normal taxes plus 2 quarterly payments for 2020. So just be very careful that you're budgeting your money, you're saving that, setting that aside, because when that time comes, that could be a significant amount of money that would all come at one time. But nonetheless, deadlines were increased. Most of the states followed. I will caution, word of caution, not all the states did follow that July 15th date. Maryland and West Virginia did, but there are certain states in our local region that did not. So, make sure you're following up on that just to confirm that your state did follow the July 15th date. There are some tax law changes, and I'll back up for just a minute. Before I got here today, I got an email that they're now considering September 15th or possibly December 15th for that July 15th date as well. So there may be further extensions coming.
Wow.
We're sort of hoping not, but that may be the case. There were some additional tax law changes, and there are going to be many more to come. And I would envision that once we get some good information on that, maybe we'll do this again and put some of those out there. But a few that have taken place at this point, we've been through unemployment and we've been through the PPP. There are lots of folks, lots of small businesses that have said, I can weather this storm. I'm going to keep going. I don't need these programs. I'm prepared. I'm ready to go. And they've kept going, and they've kept paying their employees just business as usual. The government did put out an employee retention credit for them. That basically, if you're keeping your folks on payroll, there's a credit that you may potentially qualify for, which would be, a portion of the employer Social Security and Medicare taxes that you're paying on your employees. The government is going to, in effect, reward you and say, thank you for kicking in. Thank you for keeping going here. We'll help you from that standpoint. So that has happened. Required minimum distributions. A lot of folks that are retired, they're having to, if they're over 70 and a half, 72, they're taking a required distribution on their IRA every year. Government came out and said in 2020, because of everything that's going on, we're not going to require you to take that distribution. That can be very valuable to some folks. The stock market, your accounts are down, your IRAs are down right now. You really don't want to take money out of that because it's going to, make it less. So that can be a valuable resource for some folks.
So you could leave
too.
that kind of plugged in there in hopes that we're going to see some recovery, and we believe
Correct.
that we are. We had a very, very strong economy before
Right.
this started. We're not really dealing with an economic problem at the root. We're dealing with this pandemic
Right.
and the economics is kind of a symptom of it. But
Right.
we believe that's going to come back. So if you're in that position to leave it in there,
That's right.
Just do that.
That's right.
And the hopes is that's going to come back.
Yeah.
So that's something a lot of folks probably don't think about or might not even know about. But
Right.
if you can leave it in there, just leave it there.
Absolutely. If you can let that account rest for a year, let that account build up, that may be the right opportunity to do that. And for 2020, the government has come out and said there will be no penalty for not taking your required distribution this year.
Yeah.
So that's another big one. Another one that hits here locally, the charitable contributions. A lot of folks in our last round of tax law changes, charitable contributions, which are part of your itemized deductions, may not have been deductible for some anymore because the standard deduction increased. Charitable donations were buried in that standard deduction, so they weren't getting the deduction. Government has come out and said we're now going to allow everybody up to $300 of a deductible charitable donation no matter what. Whether you itemize or whether you take the standard deduction, we're going to give you a freebie per se of $300 that we will allow you to deduct. Maybe more to come on that one too, so we'll see what happens.
Checks should be made payable to Crossroads. Just kidding you. Just kidding you. But,
or give online.
or you can give online. Yeah, but hey, it's a great time if you can help we're not doing this for our church, but if you can help your local church, or we've got tons of great organizations
Right.
in Garrett County that are funded by donations.
Right.
And again, we know some people are really hurting right now, but others are in a different spot.
Right.
And they're still able to give, and we encourage you to do that. That's one of the ways that we keep love and grace and peace and goodwill flowing in our community, which is good for all of us,
Right.
is to be generous. And so if you're able to do that to some of the great organizations we have here in the county, we encourage you to do that and take the
deduction.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's a good point, Dave. I do work with a lot of the not-for-profits in this area, and they're struggling too.
Yeah.
They're like a small business. There's not income coming in their door right now either. So absolutely, that's a great point.
Yeah. Any other kind of grant programs or anything like that available for small businesses?
Yeah, there are a few other grant programs, and I think we'll see more to come on this too as we try to climb out of this. Their SBA put out what was called the EIDL, the Economic Injury Disaster Loans. A lot of businesses did sign up for those. It was a loan. It's a $50,000 loan, which it had a $10,000 grant in the midst of it, basically. So if you signed up for that, you may have gotten this $10,000 grant, which really worked out to be $1,000 per employee. If you had 4 employees, you got $4,000. Those, there is a grant program, but there's also the loan, like I mentioned. I think it's a $50,000 loan. It's long-term, low interest. So if you're in a real bind and you do need to, incur some expenses, that may be an option for you. That's at sba.gov. sba.gov. It's the EIDL, Economic Injury Disaster Loan. Maryland, for the Maryland small businesses, Maryland had a $10,000 grant program at Maryland One Stop. They were taking applications. They cut that off a few weeks ago. I think the system got overloaded from what I've been told. I have not locally seen anybody receive that yet, but I do think I have seen some folks get approvals on it. So there should be some funds coming on that. We'll see if they are able to open that back up in any way. Our county economic development folks opened up a grant program just yesterday. Works out to be $2,500 for a small business. They're calling it the Kickstart program. I think it's to give you a little bit of a kickstart when you get back in business. There are some requirements on that, but if you reach out to the economic development office at the courthouse, I'm sure they can get you in the loop on that. most of these programs and have a limited pool of money. Yeah. And these days, what we've been finding is the money's going fast. And it, so if you're not at the front and center when these programs come out, it's really hard and difficult to get signed up for them. But they are out there, and we'll continue to, pass them on as we see them pop up.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to say is, we're dealing with a pandemic. It's just kind of created this healthcare issue, and then the economy's suffering. But probably the thing that most everybody is suffering with is the mental health side of all of this, and especially if you're somebody who has been leading a business or organization, and you saw that thing come to this screeching halt. Yeah. I had to close a business one time. It was one of the worst days of my life. And I was a young man. I had no idea what I was doing, but it was kind of my dream, open my own business. And it was just me and a couple other employees. But I watched that thing just come to a halt, and a day came where I had to turn the closed sign, facing the street there and lock the door, and that was it. It was awful. Right. It was really, really awful. And so I have a heart for people who are looking at this and thinking, hey, am I going to recover? Can I rebuild? Right. And just a couple of things I would say is rebuilding takes time. Mm-hmm. It takes time. And so you've got to prepare your mind that this is not, you're not going to solve this issue in 2 weeks and probably not 2 months. This is a marathon. It's going to take you a while. But I also want to say it's not the end of the world. Right. We have lived through crises before, and we're going to live through them again. That's right. God is good, and God is faithful. That's right. And so we're going to encourage you to do a couple of things. Lean on Him, number one. Lean on some people. As you said, you're seeing a lot of collaboration between CPAs and businesses in our community. Right. Do that. We're doing that with pastors. I had a pastor from another church stop by here yesterday, and we just talked with each other and encouraged each other, you know? Because the world's changed for all of us so quickly. So prepare your mind that this is going to take a while. Also prepare your mind that you might have to do some things that you didn't think you'd have to do. Right. That doesn't mean you're going to do them forever. Right. But you might have to do them for a while. I was talking to Brian off camera about one of our elders here at church and how I watched him a few years ago kind of get, going through some corporate restructuring, downsize. He lost his job. Right. And he was an executive, and he was used to having flexibility and freedom in his schedule, and he was overseeing other people. And the next thing you know, he found himself working in retail. Right. Something that he didn't plan to do, in his 50s. Right. But he had to. But I tell you, I really admire the guy because he did what he needed to do for as long as he needed to do it. He realized this wasn't going to be forever. Right. But in order to kind of rebuild his life and rebuild his career, he was going to have to do it. Right. And that meant long shifts on a concrete floor. Yep. That meant dealing with the public that he wasn't used to dealing with. Yep. A job that he wasn't even an expert in. Right. But he just did what he had to do. But he still had that vision in mind that, you know what, I'm going to rebuild and I'm going to get back to where I needed to be and where I want to be. But he was willing to kind of make some hard choices, do some really, really hard work to get him there. And so I'm sure you're encouraging business owners to, hey, long-term here and be flexible.
Absolutely. Business owners have put in lots of time to build their business to where it was before COVID. So it's not something to take lightly and just walk away from. It can be built back. And I think positivity is one of the biggest keys in all this. There's so much negativity out there these days. Yeah. I think staying positive is so important in these days. And I do think working as a team. I believe the team effort is more important than ever right now, that, your employees have good ideas. Listen to their ideas. A business owner can't take it all upon themselves right now. There's too much going on. Everything that we just went through, the business owners are having to sift through, the human resource issues. It just, use your employees right now to your advantage. Let them, listen to their ideas. Let them brainstorm while maybe we're not as busy as we've normally been right now. There's time to do that kind of thing. I love what you mentioned earlier, Dave, about, sort of clean out the closet on this one. There's lots of things that you've been wanting to do for years that, you just haven't taken the initiative to do changes you've wanted to make in your business, now's the time. There's no better time than right now than to make those changes.
Yeah, and I want to say also, this is a good time to invest in your own health physically. We've been limited, but as the weather gets good, I mean, if nothing else, get outside and take a walk.
Right.
My wife and I, she loves to track things and log things.
Right.
And so, she's a runner. I'm certainly not.
Right.
I can walk most days, but she's been tracking. We've logged since the quarantine kind of hit. We've logged like 84 miles, and it's just a couple of miles a day.
That's great.
But that walk just gets you out of the house, get into some sunshine whenever we get it here in Garrett County. But that's good for your physical health. It's good for your emotional health and your mental health. Make those investments in yourself.
Yep.
Again, now is not the time to fall apart.
Nope.
But spiritually speaking as well, get some people around your life that you can lean on, that you can talk to.
Yes.
And again, we're encouraging communication with your employees, but also the fellowship that happens between some other leaders who only they really know the pressure that you're under.
Exactly.
You don't have to have 20 friends,
right,
but you need 2 or 3.
Right, absolutely.
You need a couple of people who are kind of in your same spot.
Absolutely.
That you can talk openly and honestly with. It's not the time to turn to things that are only going to lead to destruction,
right?
Right. But it is time to turn to one another to get some strength and invest in your own mental health during this time.
Oh, I would agree. And just like when we started and we said, okay, maybe we have a couple bills that we can't pay right now. Don't hide those under the rug. We said about those bills. I would say the exact same thing with the issues you're dealing with as a small business owner. Don't keep them inside. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot going on right now, and the more you let that build up inside, those anxieties and those worries, the more problems it's going to create in the long run. I mean, use your spouse. I mean, I know I do, and I think Crystal's so tired of hearing the word PPP that there's times she wants me to stay at work. But you want to stay. Don't keep those kinds of things inside, because there is too much pressure on the small business owner right now that it can really creep up on you.
Yeah, and one of the things we want to offer, as a church and also as a business community, if you need help, reach out to us. We talked about maybe there's a small group we put together. Maybe we do a business Zoom chat or something like that to try to talk about some further resources and some ideas. Or maybe it's just a sounding board. Right. You want to run an idea by somebody or something. Right. Or maybe there's a true need there. One of the things that I've learned about business owners over the years is they're often the last people to ask for help. Right. You got all this pressure on you as the leader.
Pressure and pride.
Pressure and pride. That's right. Those are 2 P's that we deal with. And we just want to encourage you, set that stuff aside. Yep. And if there's any way that we can help, I certainly make myself available. You can get in touch with me at just pastor@crossroadsthechurch.com, pastor@crossroadsthechurch.com. And I know you've been very, very busy, but you've said that you would make yourself available as well.
Absolutely.
And what's the best way for folks to get in touch with you?
Yeah, absolutely. My email address is bboal, BBOAL, at BOALCPAS.com. So bboal at boalcpas.com. And absolutely, I'm glad to answer any questions, anytime on these topics.
Yeah. And just in closing today, we just want to encourage you. We know it's a crazy time for everybody. We know it's uniquely, I don't want to say it's more difficult as a leader, but leadership has unique challenges with it. Right. And especially in the small business community, it's one thing to be on the board or an executive at some huge Fortune 500 company. Right. It's another thing to be leading a company with 10 employees here in Garrett County, or more. We know we have some of those too. But we do want to encourage you. This is a crisis. Every crisis has a beginning, it has a middle, and it has an ending. Right. This one is going to have an ending. Right. It's probably not going to end as quickly as we all want it to. Right. Right. But we can make it through this. Your life is not over. God's still got a plan for you and a purpose for you. He saw Corona coming a long time before any of us did, and so we just want to encourage you. That this thing it will come to an end. You'll see yourself through the other side of it. Things might look different. Right. This might be the difference maker maker that you've been praying for a long time.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
and so just don't get too discouraged in this. Reach out for help. Again, we're available. We know others are. We know you've got some friends, some people in your life, and we just want to encourage you at this time. Don't give up.
No, it's what's unique about this situation that sometimes isn't the case is we're all in this together. We're all experiencing this together. It's not like one business owner that's facing a bankruptcy or something like that. We're all dealing with this right now. So I think the more we can reach out and collaborate with one another, the more positive we're all going to be.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for joining us for kind of part 2 of this podcast. If you didn't catch episode 1, you can go back and find that on any of our social media pages or on our website, crossroadsthechurch.com. Have a blessed day, everybody.
Thank you.